Hello again, and thank you for staying with us. We continue here. South Africa's working class is now the fastest growing segment, with 1.2 million households moving up from poverty or the working poor over the past decade. That's according to a recent study by the UCT Liberty Institute of Strategic Marketing, commissioned by Liberty as well as Standard Bank. But while social mobility from poverty is happening, breaking into the middle class has become increasingly difficult, now squeezed by rising living costs as well as a stagnant economy. As we marked International Workers' Day yesterday, it's a timely moment to reflect on South Africa's often overlooked group, and that's the middle class. Joining me now to unpack this is Dr. Mary Mangai, who's a senior lecturer at the School of Public Management and Administration at the University of Pretoria, who has also written extensively on this topic. Dr. Mangai, good to have you on the program this evening. To begin, can you explain what even defines the aspirant middle class, especially in the South African context, and how this group differs from the traditionally defined poor or middle class?
Thank you very much. Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers. I'm glad to be here to talk on this very important issue. So the aspirant middle class, or what you could also refer as the missing middle class, are actually individuals or households whose income is too much to actually afford them government assistance or to qualify them for government assistance, but yet not enough to actually afford them private services or financial stability. So you would find this category of workers actually in the informal sector, where they do not have the privilege of having formal employment contracts. And they also are in the young professionals who are early career workers. And you could also find them earning between 5,000 Rand and 15,000 Rand. So they actually are in a situation where they cannot afford the affluent lifestyle of the middle class, and neither can they actually be said to have been in the poor. So government actually have categorized this category of people to have sufficient income to take care of their daily living and their family and household. So thank you.
Okay, as we continue with this theme, I want to find out more about your own research. What prompted you to focus on this particular demographic for your research? And why was Johannesburg chosen as the case study here?
Okay, so actually what prompted this research is that we noted that government policy have actually overlooked this group of this demographic or this group of workers. And we actually focus on Johannesburg because there is diversity in Johannesburg. There is also high level of urbanization, but also it is the economic hope of the nation. And having research that zoom into such case study can actually have some kind of understanding or knowledge or insights that can other cities or regions can actually draw from.
Yeah, your research does highlight that completing secondary education is no longer enough to reach middle class status in South Africa. What does this suggest about the changing role of education, especially in social mobility?
Yes, so you would already notice or looking backward, you would find that when people work and people finish their matric, they have access to jobs opportunities. But looking at where we're headed and the transitions in jobs and the complexity of getting even better jobs, but also the narrative around people trying to get better standard of living, you would notice that this getting the right jobs actually would require a more higher level of education. And in fact, you would we noted that getting even working or jobs opportunities for even those who had attended university degree also even requires more than just a university degree. It will require a lot of even soft skills to get, the jobs, the required jobs at this moment.
Dr. Mangai, how significant is racial inequality, for instance, today in really shaping the economic trajectory of this aspirant middle-class household, particularly Black Africans?
Yes, so the Black Africans are actually very disadvantaged, especially because of the legacy of apartheid. We currently sitting with 11% of youths between 18 and 24 who have access to education, unlike their white counterpart who have over 60%. And we also noted that 16% of sixth graders are actually have the percentage 27% being illiterate when you compare it to their white counterpart who are actually living in also a special geographical location, which is also imperative of the past legacy. So you will find that South Africa's Gini coefficient, which is the rate at which people, the rich are compared to the poor, is sitting at 63%, which is the highest inequality in the world. And this is as a result of 20% actually of the income of the country is actually in the hands of 30% of the population, while the remaining 8% are actually left with 30% of the income of the country. So when you put all of this together and you look at the Black population, they're still far away from access to better educational opportunities. They're far away from economic opportunities as well. And they are also far away from public services, far away from transportation, from healthcare, from education. And this then would result into the cycle of poverty, because any slighted economic shock would actually see them drop into poverty. For instance, we have during the COVID where quite a number of informal sector workers actually lost their jobs, and they actually form 30% of the workforce. And this means that we're losing quite a lot of the workforce into that category of, or into the poverty line.
Interesting for me is that you mentioned that these individuals are financially self-sufficient, but still economically insecure. What are the most pressing financial vulnerabilities that these people face?
So they lack access to savings opportunities, or even investment opportunities. They're also seated with the issue of high debt level, because they're trying to live the affluent life of the middle class. And so you would find that they are in such a situation where they cannot afford it, and therefore, because of the lack of access to credit, they cannot afford to pay those bills or their bills. And I think that some of the ways to actually get them more stabilized, because it's government that actually framed them into that threshold or that bracket. Because if you compare them to their counterpart internationally, you would find that $10 per capita per day is actually what is required for a middle class, while the government actually pegged them at $4.5 per capita per day.
As we wind down our conversation, I want to revisit a theme that you touched on. How does proximity to essential services, just like healthcare, you also mentioned transport and education, how does it impact the upward mobility of this demographic?
Okay, so it does impact on their progression to the middle class as a result of the distance they have to take to come to their workplace. So you would find that they have to stay far away from their work space, which means that they have to, the time they take into doing that is actually also a resource that can actually boost their economic stability. And you would also find that their children cannot go to the same school in an environment where they work. So they are now then disadvantaged when you compare to children who are living in affluent community. And you already know that the country has been, or some populations or some race have actually been disadvantaged geographically because of the past legacy of apartheid. So educationally, they don't have, where they are living, they do not have access to good public services, even the basic ones, for instance, education, healthcare. So if their children do not go to to better schools, it means that they would have not good quality education, and you would find that it's repeating itself, considering that also they do not inherit a good financial resource, and therefore their children are also have the likelihood or are also in that situation as well. Healthcare is also critical, and maybe that is why basic health insurance, because one of the policies of government that can benefit them is actually healthcare. Insurance, health insurance, but also some of the policies that government can do to enhance them is actually labor market policies, where you have social protection coverage that covers all workers. And we know that South African social protection cover is above the regional, the continental regional level, but it is still imperative that we have the informal workers. But also, I think tax policies can also impact on this population.
Dr. Mary Mangai, thank you so much for your time. She's a senior lecturer at the School of Public Management and Administration at the University of Pretoria, really shedding light on the often overlooked struggles of South Africa's aspirant middle class.